So hi everyone, my name is Dylan Yates and I work with the Nova Scotia Environmental Network, and we are the organization that is hosting this event this evening. And just a little bit about the Nova Scotia Environmental Network basically is an environmental network based in Nova Scotia, and it's a network of 30 plus environmental organizations across Nova Scotia whose common purpose is conserve and enhance the natural environment and help build a sustainable future for Nova Scotia. And we strive to support, strengthen, and promote environmental work of our members by connecting them to each other, to government, and to the general public. And we host quite a few of these webinar events, and I believe this will be our 12th. And this is the largest event that we had as far as registrants go. So we're really pumped about that, and excited to hear from Jen. And I have Carolyn O'Hanley with me this evening. She will be co-hosting the events, and we have Mary Musgrave who's helping out with some on the side. And yeah, I'll pass things off to Carolyn, and she's going to do a land acknowledgement and introduce Jen from Teacup Tiny Homes.
Hi everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the Peace and Friendship Treaties of 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of the land, but did set out the rights and responsibilities that settlers and Mi'kmaq people owe to one another. As such, we are all treaty people. As a new volunteer with the Nova Scotia Environment Network, I'm super excited. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer McCarthy from Teacup Tiny Homes. With passion, persistence, and creativity, Jen began Teacup Tiny Homes in 2016. Her vision was to diversify housing options across the planet. Starting in the residential home building industry at 19 as an interior designer, Jen spent the last 20 years working with trades and suppliers, building homes, teams, and dreams. Her drive to influence the world and help others achieve their housing goals, Jen uses her out-of-the-box thinking and unconventional style to manage business and home building. Welcome, Jen.
Unmute myself here. Hello, and thank you, everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm super excited to share more about everything tiny homes. So basically, I do have a little presentation prepared for you. And what I would like to say first off is everyone knows where the little chat feature is there in your toolbar. Drop us a line. Tell us where you're from. Where are you joining us from? We're here in Lethbridge, Alberta. It is 4:04 right now. So it's still light out and not too bad outside. We build here in the shop. I have some of the team who's still working in the back, and others have chosen to be far away from the recording today. And yeah, looks awesome. Nova Scotia. Good. Lots of Nova Scotia. I love it. Well, thank you guys for being here. I'm going to give also a huge shout out to our sales representative, Shireen, and she just popped back online. So she's here too. She is the gal that you talk to if you reach out to us through, let's see, online through our emails, or if you book a discovery call and that kind of thing. So I'm so happy to have her here also, so that, yeah, you guys can kind of see her face. So there she is. Hi, Shireen, yay. Okay, I love it, you guys. Well, I'm gonna get started. I like to talk. What we're gonna do, I have a little presentation, so I'm gonna share my screen with you. Bear with me for a second. Here it comes. And let's see. I use this new fancy one this time instead of PowerPoint. We'll see how it works. It's called Canva, if anyone's wondering. I'm sure most of you have used it before. Oh, I got to go back to the beginning. So what we're going to do here this evening is I'm going to go through this presentation and hopefully answer a lot of your questions in the presentation. And if you have more, feel free at any point in time to write your questions in the chat box. I'm going to keep that up to see if I can make sure that I can kind of try and watch it as we go and maybe speak to some of your questions. If any of you follow us on Instagram, You can head over there as well and make sure that you're following us. It's Teacup Tiny Homes on Instagram. And I'm very interactive on the social medias. So what I'm going to do later is I'm going to post a little sticker for you guys. You can ask questions there and I'll get to them in the next few hours, in the next day until it disappears. And then I believe at the end, you're going to have all of our contact info as well, so that if there's anything we missed, then you can definitely let me know. So, and also if you can mute your microphone, there we go, sounds better. All right, let's get started. Also, I love to talk, so I'm going to try and really keep it down to like a good maybe 40 minutes for you guys, so that we have about 20 minutes, half an hour, so that I can answer your questions. So the agenda for this evening is we're going to talk about what tiny homes are, kind of different definitions, how they could apply to your life. We're going to talk about why people go tiny, some experiences from some of our clients, and how basically people live and why they choose going tiny, and also the impacts on the environment, of course, is kind of why we're here. Then we're going to go into some of the technical certification, location, insurance, and talk about some more of those technical things that seem to leave everybody with a lot more questions. So that is basically where we're going to start with today. And excuse me, there we go. I swear it's not COVID, I promise. Too soon? Okay, so I'm trying to move the little blocks around too with the slideshow so that I can make sure I can read what's happening here. There we go. I'll make it small. All right, so about Teacup Tiny Homes, I'm Jen. Please call me Jen. So over COVID, I know, me too, right? So personal mission. This is something that's kind of really cool to me because I realized that there was a very strong pull to tiny homes and the people that want to go tiny. Because for me personally, my mission in life is to really show people that there's different ways of doing things than what we've always been taught. I like to help people break free from conformity and standardized thinking. And when we really dial this back into all the pillars of my life, then Teacup Tiny Homes was really created from that drive. Tiny homes are different. They're not mainstream. And I believe that it should be a choice to be able to live however we want, as long as it is safe for the people living in them, safe for the people in the environment around them, and in tiny home cases, safe for the people who are traveling on the roads and that kind of thing around where the tiny home is. So with helping people, this personal mission of mine really ties into how we do things at Teacup Tiny Homes. So our Teacup vision is to diversify housing options globally. We haven't quite got globally. We've been in Canada and the US so far. And although we're an hour north of the US border, our first US tiny home went to Alaska, of all places. And basically, we just keep looking at ways that we can really work towards this whole vision. At Teacup, we build design-savvy little pieces of awesome that are innovative, attainable, and a place to call home. So I see some questions coming in, and very good questions. Again, please let us know where you're tuning in from and keep those questions coming as we roll through the presentation. All right, what is a tiny home? A tiny home has really no final definition. If we look at the definition from the US, or if we look at the definition from Canada, or if we just Google it, you'll find a few different things. But basically, it is a dwelling that is 400 square feet or less. A tiny home, and this is how it ties into what some of the questions are over here, is it can be on wheels, it can be off wheels, it could be an apartment, it could be a home built on a foundation or a ready-to-move home that is installed on a site. It is often certified as an RV, and it is also often certified as a park model, or like I said, the A277 building code down here at the bottom, which is basically the code for factory built buildings. So you see a lot of tiny home builders, they build in sites that aren't necessarily where they're getting installed. If you were going to build a tiny home, you could very easily build a tiny home on a foundation, say as a site build, and you could get really any contractor to do that. Where the factory part comes in, then you're looking at more of like that manufacturing facility. So yes, Why a tiny home instead of a container home? Very good question. Well, for me, I'm not a welder and I grew up in residential construction. So with that, I know stick framing, I know lumber and that build practice. I don't know a lot about welding and containers. Now, if you just do some research online about container homes, there's going to be the good, bad, and all of the above and all the in between about container homes. So one thing that you want to look at with container homes is definitely moisture buildup. For me, I feel they would be better in a warmer, less humid climate, maybe like Las Vegas. I believe they have some of those in Phoenix and that kind of thing. So it just really depends on the building practices. But today, basically with my background, it is about the stick-built tiny homes that we build here. Hope that answers your question, although I'm sure it really doesn't fully. Let's see. Questions are rolling in. So here is, if you haven't checked us out, look at this picture behind you here. Question for later. Awesome. Off grid. Very good. Okay. So here's a picture here of one of the tiny homes that we built. So at Teacup, we focus on more of like luxury living in a smaller package. And you can see right here, we have our blue cabinets. We have ladders going to 2 lofts. And this home was specifically designed for a single dad. And he wanted space for his little guy to come and join him. He wanted the finer finishes. He wanted the gold faucets. He wanted the quartz countertops. And he also wanted this really cool bookshelf in the background here because he has a lot of books and he didn't want to watch TV. So the cool things about what we do with this, and one of the questions might be, what is the difference between like an RV and a tiny home? We get that quite often. This home specifically was built as a CSA Z240 RV. So it is a certified RV. And yeah, basically the difference is that this gentleman, he had the option to pick everything. We had the option to be able to personalize it to his needs. This plan is the Safe Haven plan. You can find it on our website, teacuptinyhomes.com. And basically, with the tweaks that we did to cater to his needs, is this before this main floor living area has sometimes been a bedroom. And in his case, we added this wood burning fireplace as well. Here's actually the floor plan in plan view just from our website there. So you can see how the floor plan shows a sleeping area, and we just basically open this up for him so that it could be a living room. So you get more of that custom design. Also, the difference between RVs versus tiny homes is that we're using stronger is key. I would say better building materials. They're a lot higher quality. They will last a lot longer. They're going to wear and tear a lot more like your traditional home instead of an RV. If anyone has used an RV a lot, maybe you should like throw a number 1 in the comment section there. If you've lived in an RV or if you spend a lot of time in an RV, send me a little number 1 here. I want to know. Because you're probably going to know how those materials wear and tear. And our tiny homes, we're using wood on the walls, for example. We're using paint. We don't use vinyl paneling. We use the high-end custom cabinets with our soft closed doors and drawers and all of those kinds of things. Yes, exactly. Good. We have some ones here. So anyway, the building materials, they just last a lot longer. See. So why do some clients go tiny? This is what a few of our clients had to say. And I just have to say that we have like pretty amazing clients and they share with us all of the time. I'm not sure if that's getting cut off at the bottom or not, but our one clients basically why they choose to go tiny. These are pretty typical answers. And we ask this to all of our questions or to all of our clients. Because if we don't understand the psychology behind why they want to do this, we cannot build them the best home that they need. So we can't make it suit their needs. And that really impacts the lifestyle of our clients during the build, after the build, and when they're trying to set it up and then also maintain it. So it's very important that we are very much aligned with our clients. So why people go tiny? so that you can save money and do the things we really want to do with our lives. We want to travel and see the world, but we also want to live a simple life. We don't want to spend our days cleaning and working to pay off a large house, but to spend it with each other while we're still young enough to enjoy crazy adventures that we will embrace in the future. Jess and Jamie, one of our clients there in Ontario, we hate consumerism, which is one of the points I'm going to talk to later about how tiny homes help the environment and your footprint. Going tiny shows you how simple things can be. No, you don't need a cupboard full of 40 cups. It's kind of funny when you only need 4. We also loathe the idea of being tied down to a mortgage and working just to make it by. A tiny home will help us save for the future. Very good. And then also our other clients, Bree and Ryan, affordability. Let's see, just have to move this around. The minimalism lifestyle. They want to be able to live more freely without concerns of a mortgage and using the home as a stepping stone to start a business and more time to enjoy life and conquer goals. So really, a lot of the reasons why I find our clients want to go tiny is to have more freedom. And that really goes back to kind of that breaking free from conformity, right? When you feel like you're trapped in these things, you have less flexibility to really live life and experience. And that is really one of the biggest reasons. What do I have next here? Okay, so we're going to get into benefits on people and the environment from the tiny home lifestyle. All right. So with this topic, this was one of the questions that was asked to me in doing this. And I love this topic because for me personally, I think that the benefits of going tiny are kind of unforeseen at first. So when we look at, let's just look at lifestyle, and this is something that I really connect with. Not only are we using higher quality materials, your replacement costs are down without using the vinyl, without using products that are going to deteriorate and need to be replaced more often. Obviously, you're just creating less waste for the environment, right? That's one thing that is really noticeable in tiny homes. You're using less, of course. So we use less of everything. A lot of people are asking us about supply chain issues. And to be very honest with you, we haven't had a lot of those issues. And I think it's mostly because you have a lot of big projects going on. And then we're just kind of, the amounts of stuff that we need are very small. So we're able to get in the siding or the countertops or cabinets or this, that, or the other. Using less. Consumerism. So this is a big one when we look at the lifestyle of the people that are living tiny. And let's just to break it down, you have less space. You'll be getting rid of a lot of things as you move into your tiny home, but at the same time, you're going to be bringing less in. And it's funny, it says LP may not be available in all areas. I just read that in the comments, and we actually have an LP wood product that we use, which we just heard today is probably not going to be available in many areas. But that wasn't what you were talking about. Anyway, Gloria, we'll come back to that. So when you're bringing less into your home, really, there's not a lot of space. When we plan the design of your home, we're looking at everything that you have. We've even gone as far as like measuring the stacks of, let's say, jeans. If someone wants to have 2 or 3 or 4 pairs of pants that they're bringing into their tiny home, we measure how tall they are and make sure that we have that space available. Design is so key because when something comes in, something has to go out. So simply because of that, the awareness in our clients after they move in is so heightened that there's literally just less things, less consumerism, less buying, less throwing out, less getting rid of them. So that again has a very huge impact on the environment. I just saw something the other day on Instagram about the amount of clothing waste that actually goes into landfills every year, and it's insane. So by going tiny, you're definitely reducing that. Less use of energy, of course. What we use for insulation, and this was a question, we use spray foam insulation in our all-season tiny homes. So oh, Gloria, I'm loving your comments. Sorry, guys, I'm getting so distracted. Less stuff, more intention. Yes, exactly. So we use a spray foam closed cell insulation. We fill the cavity of all the stud spaces in the tiny home. So you're 3.5 inches in the walls, and then you're about 5.5 inches in the floor and in the ceiling. And so that really gives you basically what you do with closed cell insulation is for every inch, you times that by 7. So it's very, very well insulated, and it helps with the structural rigidity of the home. So if we're doing stick framing like we are, then that's something that's just really important to us, depending on, again, the use. If we have a client who's going to be traveling more with their tiny home on wheels, then we're going to encourage them to go with the spray foam. So the R value, yeah, in the walls is like around R22, 3, basically around there. And then in the ceilings, we're at about R35, in the floor R35. It is, and what kind is a closed cell spray foam insulation. And that's what we use typically. Now we do have a 3-season product.
Morgan to complain.
Which we have, we have a 3-season product as well, where we just use bat insulation. So it's like your standard R12 in the walls. And that really is just meant for like summer use or seasonal use or recreational use. It's not going to keep you as warm. So just from that high efficiency, they are very airtight, the tiny homes. So we do have to add ventilation in. Of course, we do that using the Lunos HRV. So basically it's a system that works by pulling and pushing the air in and out of the space. We have hood fans over the stove. If you ever see anything that doesn't have a hood fan, that's kind of like a red flag. It's something that should definitely be there. And then the Lunos can actually work as a bath fan as well. So that's really going to help you with the overall circulation of the air. So let's see, going back to energy, because the space is so small, it really takes very, very little energy to heat the tiny homes. And hot air rises, the lofts stay nice and warm. In the summer, we use a mini split as air conditioning. With the mini splits, they don't necessarily heat the space as well, especially in our Canadian cold winters. So we always want to make sure that you have another source of heat. We at Teacup used a force air in-floor heat. So we have ducting that goes through the floor cavity. And what that does is that keeps that air circulating through the house as well. So let's see, maintenance, yes. Maintenance is different in a tiny home. So one thing that we really want to look at with the lifestyle of our clients that are going tiny is the lifestyle that they're looking for, like we talked about before. So although there is still maintenance to do, I talked to one of our homeowners before this presentation. I just wanted to check in on her. And she basically said, you know, Jen, it's just different. It takes way less time, but it's different. So in the winter, she prepares her home by making sure her heat trace and her skirting is up to par, where she's not going to have any cold spots that are going to freeze later when it gets cold. She said you would be doing things like mowing a lawn or taking care of your yard or something like that. Anyway, she said it's really just different, but because it's so small, it's easier to maintain. And that's really what she wanted when she was going tiny, is she wanted that freedom and flexibility to focus on what she really liked to do. I asked her if she bought healthier food or less food in the fridge because there was less space. So then she was replacing it more often. That has been a comment from some of our tiny homers. And she actually said no. She said she actually probably buys more food now and cooks more, possibly because she just has more time. She's not consumed by cleaning the house and putting things away because it just takes so much less time. So I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah, and then I guess maintenance too. One of the things that's often overlooked by people going tiny is the fact that you have to maintain it just like anything. And it really is an education process to make sure that clients understand what it takes to set up and maintain a tiny home. So what we have here at Teacup is when you decide that you want to build with us, then we sign you up for an online client portal, basically. And what it does is it takes you through the whole process, our build process and the beginning prices, quoting, all that kind of thing. And then it goes into a thorough explanation of why we use the materials we do, what it looks like when your home gets to you, what that site setup looks like, the items that you need to have on hand for when the delivery driver shows up. And then we go into maintenance. So it basically tells you the little things that you need to maintain along the way so that you make sure that your investment stays in the best shape that it can. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute here, you guys, and I'm going to look at some of the questions. I am looking at them. You'll see me space out for a minute when I look to the side. Let's see. Okay, mini split. Yes, we talked about the mini split. Yeah, yes, there may be spelling errors, you guys. It happens. Delivery of the information is super key. Lunos is spelled with L-U-N-O-S. Okay, what else was there? Let's see. So delivery costs, yeah, it really depends. Delivery costs aren't included in our costs. Basically, depending on if you're going from Lethbridge to wherever it is, then we have to have a client or our delivery driver quote that for you. So usually for like the GTA area, I think we were somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000. It really depends on the weight of your tiny home and the size of your tiny home, and that, and also if they're the driver, whoever you decide to hire, or if you use who we recommend, it depends on if you can get a load coming back. Okay. So off-grid capabilities. Yes, I mean, off-grid capabilities in tiny homes, that's an interesting one. We don't add solar systems to our tiny homes. So there are definitely ways that you can build them with low voltage running through the home and that kind of thing. We just found, as far as costs and what a lot of our clients are willing to invest in their tiny home, it's something often solar capabilities are added later, which can sometimes increase, well, always increase the value of the tiny home after the fact. So yeah, what we can do is we basically have a system where we can make sure that you're set up for solar capabilities later. We've priced out solar for some of our clients. The weight of the batteries needed, or the battery bank, is heavy. So if we're looking at transport costs and what that looks like, if someone's towing the tiny home around, batteries can be super heavy in fairly heavy units already. One of the things about solar on tiny homes is a lot of people want to put their solar panels on the roof. It's fine, except usually when you're trying to find a spot to park, you want to be in a shaded area under trees. So that's another thing too, is that we don't really like to include those solar panels, because if you're parked under trees, you're not going to be getting the full capabilities. And it's a lot better for people to do solar panels on the floor, for example. So if, yeah, we don't put the solar system in, but if someone wants to, we have had clients who hire a solar professional in their area afterwards. Okay. So let's see, what do we do as a professional builder and a small space expert? Yes. So I talked about how we guide our clients through the process, because thinking about living in the tiny home after the build, it's something that it's kind of like, oh, I don't even know if I should draw this parallel. It's kind of funny. You know how like when you're young and you want to get married and you're just thinking about this wedding? I was never that. I was never in that mindset. But you have to think about the life after the wedding, right? I don't know why that just popped into my head. Bear with me. So basically, you think about the dream of going tiny, but we really want to make sure our clients are aware of what the reality of living tiny is. So the most successful clients we've had are ones that you know, they're not afraid to learn. They're extremely resourceful. They're not afraid of getting down and dirty if they need to, and can kind of really take on learning, Googling how to use systems or how to troubleshoot something if something happens. And of course, we're there for our clients all the time if they need our help. Susan, you have a question. Why put it under the trees? Hard on the roof? Yeah, well, we use steel roof. So yes, possibly hard on the roof. But one of the reasons is just shade and protection from the elements, right? Instead of being like where it's bare and open. So it might be a little bit different for you guys in Nova Scotia than here. We're in an extremely windy area in Lethbridge as well. So having that extra protection is just a little bit nicer than having it in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I talked about our process, how we analyze the needs of our clients and what they're really looking for. So if we do have people that are really looking to have those off-grid capabilities, for example, we have the conversations of why, and then we make sure that they're investing their money in parts of the build that are really going to benefit them the best. So we use our expertise to personalize their home for them. So I guess over the years, one of my biggest passions has been the psychology of people and how people move through spaces. This is part of design school, of course, is you have to analyze clients and you have to analyze how people live, move, breathe, sleep, so that you can really make sure that you're designing a space that's perfect for them. So we use this expertise. I wrote a note here, custom isn't better. A lot of the time, if someone wants custom builds, they can be super elaborate and very cool and seem to be very functional. But at the same time, because we're dealing with square inches instead of square feet, custom designs aren't always better for where plumbing stacks need to go, where furnaces or water heaters need to go, or that kind of thing. So there is, if we do go custom, obviously there's a big investment there in figuring out the space to make sure that it's going to work the best for the client who's going to be living in it. Something to note is all mechanical and building systems work together. So when we ask individual questions about furnaces or hot water heaters, that kind of thing, we get asked this all the time, especially online. It's really hard to speak to, well, to what needs to be done everywhere else. So depending on how the house is heated, if there's in-floor heat, you might not need another heat source unless it's just for backup. If someone is using a wood burning stove, for example, as their main heat source, well, then maybe you do want something else. Depending on how the framing is, where the plugins are, where our mechanicals are going, it really all works together. And one of the very interesting things when we've been building the tiny homes is that if we actually have to move something like half an inch, it can affect the entire build. So it's very important that we're very thorough through the whole process to make sure that everything is working together. Another thing that we do is we really assess the weight versus the cost and versus the materials that are being used. So one thing, especially if people want to tow their tiny home, definitely have to look into DOT regulations. And what we do is we plan the weight right now, like it's just basically experience and knowing how much a tiny home is going to weigh. So most of the time, the 30-foot long tinies that we build with our standard specification, typically spray foam insulation, the custom cabinets, laminate flooring, everything that we put in, you're usually around that 15,000 to maybe 18,000 pounds. And that's for the gross vehicle weight. So you want to make sure that you're checking with DOT to make sure that you're qualifying for those certain things. Different provinces are totally different. Making sure that you have the proper vehicle to tow the tiny home is super important as well. So if we know that a client wants to be towing the home themselves, then we basically encourage them to make sure they have the right vehicle, but we also really look at those building materials to make sure that it's going to be as user-friendly as possible. So, maybe we don't do tile in the bathroom because, well, firstly, I don't really like tile in the bathroom, but aesthetically, it's very nice. So sometimes there's those trade-offs between having something that's very fancy to having something that's more practical for the weight. And then again, the use of the tiny homeowner. And again, teaching people how to use their home is so super key. Very, very key. Okay, so let's see, putting on property. So we're going to go into talking about properties and logistics and certifications here shortly. What's next? How to make a tiny home more eco-friendly. How are you guys doing? I turned off my screen so I could see my slides. I can't see really any of your faces. We doing good? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Tell me you're still there. Rooftop terrace. I love the question. Yeah. Nice. Good, good, good. Okay. Good. We're doing good. I love it. Okay. Thank you guys. Keep the questions coming. Again, I'm glancing over, and at the end, when I have time to actually look at that closer, then I will and answer them. Okay. So how to make a tiny home more eco-friendly. So there are a lot of ways to do this. Of course, what we encourage people, because when it goes from our shop to our homeowner, there's so many more things that homeowners can do when they get their home. So it's things like adding the rainwater catchment system, or we always say to add gutters or eaves troughs, whatever you may call it, on the sides. That's super important because we just can't install them. They can't go down the road, they'll like peel off and stuff like that. And then it would put you over the width. So I guess something technical is that a certified RV cannot be any wider than 8'6". And that's outside to outside. And that includes like roof overhangs. And then your max height is 13'6", and that's to go down the highway. So that is certified to RVs. Park models, basically the definition of a park model is a recreational dwelling, a recreational unit that is wider than 8.5 feet. So as soon as you go over that 8.5, you do need a permit, in which case, if you do an oversized permit, you can go taller depending, you can go wider, and then that gives you a little more flexibility. So just a few little details there. We talked a little bit about solar capabilities, how tiny homes are more eco-friendly. Of course, you consume less, you're being more intentional with your time, as we talked about. Happier people, I think, are more eco-friendly. I don't know. It's just the vibe that we give off. I think so, right? Of course, you're going to focus on your health, your fitness, and just the overall well-being. And the one thing that I love about tiny homes is really, like I said, the psychology behind it. It's really cool to have an amazing community coming together to support something that is different, to create those options for people to live. Let's see, partnerships, financing, joint ventures. Okay. So we'll get to some of those things here in the technical slide. Here we go. So technical, there's so much technical information, you guys. So I'm going to try and answer your questions here. Location, certification, financing, and insurance. All great questions. I was told that a big question is it legal to live in a tiny home RV year round? The answer, to be honest, I don't know if there's actually a law that says you cannot, but the definition of an RV is a recreational vehicle. The definition of a park model is that it's for seasonal use. So it says that right there, and that's really the biggest reason why, which doesn't make a whole ton of sense, except for the fact that the minimum code for these builds for RVs and for park models, it wouldn't be able, let's see, I'm going to choose my words here, to properly keep you warm and keep you safe basically year round. And that's really the biggest thing. It comes down to safety and safety codes, right? That's why we have the CSA. That's why we have codes in place. It's for really the safety of the people, the environment, and everyone around. So what I know is that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people living in standard RVs all over the world. It's a thing that happens. What we do for Teacup Tiny Homes is it really depends on what your use is. Like I said, if you're going to be moving more and you want to take that risk, maybe you're using your tiny home to live in it very often. Maybe you're using it to live in it full time. Maybe you're living it as a vacation property, which it is a very great solution for cottages or cabins as well. Whatever you do, it is very important that you do the research, and whatever risk that you're taking, you're really taking that on yourself. So let's see. The biggest thing, at least for myself, is less consumption, simplifying your lifestyle, not over consuming. Exactly how that helps with the environment. I assume we're talking to that. So good. good stuff in the comments. That's what I'm reading when I kind of like stop talking for a minute. Never happens. So let's talk about location. Using a tiny home as your primary residence. Yeah, that again, it really all depends. We have a foundation tiny home. So a tiny home that is site installed on a foundation legally in the city of Fort McMurray here in Alberta. And it was a very interesting process. So very lucky for me in my home building days and operation manager days and interior design days, we got to work a lot in land development as well. So knowing the conversations to have with your municipality is very important. I would suggest that if you do decide that you're going to work with the municipality, then the key word right there is work with them. So what you want to be doing is you want to meet with counselors and you want to see if a tiny home on wheels or off wheels is something that would be available to you. Probably the answer right off the bat is going to be no. I find when you just call into a municipality, you get in touch typically with the first person on the line. They may direct you to development services or something like that. You're going to get a lot of no's through the process. But to me, for every no, there has to be a yes in there somewhere. So you just kind of keep going. Resourcefulness is where this really comes in key. So, yes, the reasons why they don't want you to live in an RV year round. I truly, to me, it's the building code. To me, there's so many issues. It could be taxes. It could be that the people just don't want you to. It could be that they just don't want the liability and they're scared to say yes because they aren't the decision makers. Working with administration and municipality, it can be very challenging. What I have found with location is that it really depends site to site and municipality to municipality. Here in Southern Alberta, we have a town called Pincher Creek, and then we have Willow Creek MD basically. And they have told us, bring the tiny homes, buy some land, bring them. We don't care what you live in, just buy the land so that we can keep developing and you'll pay taxes on that land and it's awesome. So they're very open and for it. And then we have other places that are near Calgary and they say absolutely not because it's going to drive down the property values in the area. So there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of things that go along with it. You can remove one of the biggest things is that the unit needs to meet building code. And that's what people say. If it 100% meet building code, is installed on a foundation and is hooked up to services, then we can do it. I've actually gotten that response from the city of Lethbridge. Also, the other thing you want to look at is the land use bylaw for the area. And a lot of the times there are limitations in the land use bylaw where it says you have to be 900 square feet. We've seen many people go to the municipalities and talk to council and really plead their case and saying, you know, why are you telling me how much square feet I need to live in? And generally, the amount of square footage has been on the rise, right? We as humans, we are living in more square footage per person in that home than really we ever have before. So there's a really good case. And I do know, I don't know exactly where, there have been bylaws that have been changed. I believe Kingston is one of those. I think Victoria is doing a trial for backyard garden suites or laneway housing. Edmonton as well is another one of those municipalities. So people are getting on board and really it's just taking groups of people to go and talk to the councillors, talk to the municipality and figure out how can we make this work. And that will be really important in a lot of the spaces that are more saturated. Here in Lethbridge, for example, tiny homes maybe don't necessarily make as much sense because the cost to build is generally high. You can still build and buy a large lot in Lethbridge for $225,000. So it really depends. It really depends on what people are looking for. Whereas in places like Vancouver, Victoria, Toronto, more so in Ontario, possibly for you guys too. I'm not sure. I was going to actually look what your housing prices are like, but it very well might make more sense depending on that cost of living, right? Yes, a call to action absolutely may be needed. A revolution. I love a good revolution, definitely. Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily that they don't like, the comment just says, I think government doesn't like the idea because there's less taxes on them. I don't know if that's true. I sense that the uncertainty of something new, it drives the fear. And what I have found is that people that I've talked to, they just really fall back on what that definition is in the dictionary or in the code book, and then they don't really move from that. So if you get someone that's willing to have the conversation with you, it's going to be a lot easier to plead your case. Talk to your neighbors, talk to people that are supportive of what you want to do. A lot of the time, small towns who have kind of been almost like where there's been no economic growth or anything like that, oftentimes you'll have more ability to get a tiny home. There's a small town in Alberta also who basically they got the approval from the neighbors, they went to council, they did everything they needed to do, and yeah, they were approved. So don't give up if it's something that you really want. But what I find is it really comes down to the resilience of the person who's trying to figure it out. It takes time.
It's not working. Please check your connection or use a different.
So, question, also wonder what the zoning difference is between a cottage / camp and tiny home would be. Yeah, exactly. They are the same. So actually where a lot of developers are getting around this is they're calling them RV parks. And they're kind of going through, like it could be a condo project or something like that, where you have multiple sites on one piece of land. So as far as developments go, yeah, a recreational RV sites, they have been able to get away with having tiny homes in full time. So there are a few of these areas in BC as well. And it would be very similar. A lot of the time though, they are, you have to have that RV certification or your park model certification for those areas. Yeah, and truly a lot of people, when they start going down that road, is they just decide, okay, I'm gonna have an RV and I can park it where an RV can be parked. And then it's just depends on if you get by someone who's a whistleblower or not that says that you can't have it there. So basically what I usually say is if you're finding somewhere to park, then you can park a certified RV wherever you're allowed to park a certified RV. And then you decide what chances you're willing to take there. If you are, or if you're not, then we look at different options. One of the things too is that the building code, like the way we build tiny homes, they like pretty much meet national building code depending where you are. And yeah, it's that's one of the things too, like lofts, technically they say that the headroom, there's not enough headroom in lofts. So here in Canada, we do have some work to do as far as codes go, and there are a lot of groups that are fighting for tiny home codes. In the US, it's a lot different. They actually have an appendix in their building code. So it's very interesting there. So we take those rules into account as well to make sure that we're following those guidelines, just because Canada simply doesn't have them. Question from earlier, does Teacup partner with established resort businesses? Yeah, we do have a business partner that we're working on right now. We actually love that. We love building tiny homes and tiny cottages or tiny cabins for people. So if anyone's interested, then absolutely find our information, let us know, and then we can talk more about it. And Shireen, who's on the call, will also love to talk more with you about that. Okay, how are we doing? Nova Scotia had amended the code under Part 9. Awesome. I don't know exactly about that. So yeah, that's great. Alberta building code, I got a hard no, we will not be changing the safety codes in Alberta to work with tiny homes, but hey, where there's a will, there's a way. I'm gonna look into that for sure. So Holy cow, I'm really talking a lot. 10 more minutes. Financing and insurance. Financing, again, it all depends on what kind of tiny home you're building. Basically, if you go to a bank and you want a tiny home and they tell you that you can get a mortgage, they're wrong. You can only get a mortgage if you are permanently installed in a foundation and attached to the land. Something that you'll want to be looking for if you have a tiny home on wheels, you'll want to be looking for RV financing, which your builder should be able to point you in the right direction for any of these things, or a chattel mortgage. That is something that's more like a manufactured home or a mobile home. A chattel is something that you can move around freely and isn't permanently attached to the ground. Your builder should be able to point you in the direction of any of these ways. Financing used to be a really scary thing for people when it came to tiny homes, but it's not anymore. We figured out ways around it. So yay. Insurance also, again, many companies are coming on board with tiny home insurance. So it's just talk to your builder, they'll be able to point you in the right direction for those as well. And join a lot of communities. There's tons of great information on community, okay, grain of salt there. There's a lot of good information. There's a lot of not good information there as well on some of the Facebook groups, but just make sure that when you're reading things, do your homework and see, I guess, do your due diligence when you're researching everything. So that is the slideshow in a nutshell with all the talking. So yes, if you want to reach out, you can absolutely reach out to the website. You can get a hold of us, teacuptinyhomes.com. There's a spot there that you can shoot us a message, or you can email us directly, info@teacuptinyhomes.com. Make sure that you guys check out the Instagrams and the YouTube channel. All of it just says Teacup Tiny Homes, Facebook, and there's tons of information there. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess let's open it up to questions. Also, if there is anything that I haven't answered that you guys want to know, I think they're coming in hot there for a little bit. So make sure that you do. If you do want to, actually, I believe there's somewhere you can raise your hand at the bottom, although I don't see how I can see that. And maybe I'll just stop I'll leave the share. Stop the share, leave the share. Any other questions? If you do want to join, I believe you can just raise your hand and then you can come on here and talk to us live if you want to. What do you use for fridges? Good question. How many clients with children? A lot of clients with children. Probably half of our clients have children, so that's where the lofts come in handy. What kind of fridges we use? We actually find that standard fridges are the best. We use an LG 24 inches wide by 74 inches tall. It's a 120 volt fridge. Basically your main power suck in a tiny home is anything that heats up. So anything that has that really quick draw of energy. So your hair dryer, your curling iron, your coffee pot is one of the biggest energy sucks that we have in our homes. Fridges aren't as bad because once they're cold, it takes far less energy to keep them cold. So that's why we choose to go to that. We have seen a lot of 2-stage fridges. We are an RV parts dealer. We can get them, but they're still like $3,000 for our clients. And yeah, they're just not necessarily the best way to go. What is the inside width? Yeah, so on the inside, I think we're about 7'6" or so inside after the paneling and that kind of thing. So yes, that's what we're at. Chris asked if there's kids. Yes, always kids. Kids and dogs and cats. Lots of kids for our clients, lots of dogs, big dogs, little dogs. We do cat doors. We've done special little kitty we'll come up with there. Oh, but do you have many homeowners with pets? Yes. I think Shireen might be able to answer this if you remember. I can't think of a homeowner that didn't have a pet, to be honest. So there we go. Shireen, are you answering?
No, I was just trying to, or a cat or a bud or a bunny or something.
Exactly. Yes, very cool things that we can integrate for our homeowners. Cheap, it really all depends. For Teacup, I honestly would caution anyone who can find a tiny home in Canada for under $100,000 Canadian, really depending on the size. Just for what we have to put in for code purposes. And a lot of the time, the specialty items that we're using, they do get quite pricey. So yeah, if you're finding something below that, I would really look closely at what you're buying. Our average range, we usually, actually this year has gone up from 160 to 200,000 plus. And again, these are homes. The one we have right now, I think it's our max, basically 36 feet long, 8.5 wide, and it is packed with super unique builds. So, and I believe that one's upwards of 200,000. So again, it really depends on how the materials are that you're putting in. Types of foundation, slab, or frost wall, is that in your area of expertise? Yeah, so if you were doing it, I would do, if you're getting an RTM, so RTM stands for ready to move. Basically, we build it in our shop, we crane it onto a truck, the truck comes in and installs it onto the foundation system. All of that needs to be engineered for your zone. So depending on where we're at in Fort McMurray, for example, the engineers, they had to do things a little bit differently. They have a lot of permafrost up there. It's a different build. They're also in a different climate zone, climatic area, I guess is what you say, I think. So we had to do a few more things in that build to make sure that he would be warm, because it does get very cold there. And yeah, so it all needs to be engineered, and we would work with any engineer to make sure that that's designed properly. Shireen left a comment there with where you can reach us. So basically, with municipalities of being self-sufficient, I've had some of these conversations as well. And I mean, in a municipality, if you have a meter, a power meter, I don't know exactly what it is for you guys with hydro. It might be different. It might be the same. I'm not sure entirely, but where your power meter is, you can get, if you're feeding back into the grid, it would be very standard of having a traditional solar system on a traditional home. Where it gets a little tricky is the way that we attach tiny homes. If they're not tied to the grid to start with, we use a power cord. Basically, you basically plug one end into the tiny home, you plug the other end into the power source, and literally that is how your tiny home is. So it's the same way as an RV is powered. So the thing is that you can't feed back into the grid from that power source. You would have to have your, I believe, shore power, and that's where you would have to tie in. So and then it just really all depends on where you have your battery bank and that kind of thing. So if you have your own water, yeah, it would just be, is anyone from a municipality here? Like anyone I know? I would say that once you get your site set up and you get your inspections done and you have everything the way they want it, whatever you do to improve your energy efficiency after that probably wouldn't be a terrible thing. You like how I treaded lightly there? Okay, yeah. So I guess if there aren't any more questions, you guys, I'm going to stop sharing just because I want to see all your faces. If I can see them, I'm going to view everyone here. Wow, there's so many names and I love it. And yeah. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Again, I'm sure that it probably just provoked more questions for you, and feel free to send those over. Check out our website. Lots and lots of stuff there. Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. Yes, it has been such an amazing journey to dive into the tiny home industry. So if you guys, there's tons of information that we have all over the interwebs of our stuff. So I really appreciate it. And am I broadcasting from a tiny house? No, I'm actually in my office. I strategically placed this sign here for you guys in the background versus my giant Post-its that have all of our corporate goals on them. But that's where I am right now. And again, Shireen, she's here today too. Shireen, give us a wave quick. So that's the gal that you talk to on the phone if you book a discovery call or send us an email most of the time. So again, thank you so much. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, Jen, this has been very great, and really appreciate your time this evening discussing tiny homes. It's definitely something that I'm very interested in myself, and I'm sure everyone on this call, this is, like I said, one of the most successful events we've had in a while. So yeah, I don't know if anyone wanted to stick around for a few minutes, if they had like a specific question they wanted to ask or not. Maybe we'll just wait a few seconds to see if anyone maybe wants to raise their hand. If not, then we'll call it a night.
That's great. We actually have I did a interview over on our website in our blog section. I believe it says learn more. There's a really good interview that I did with Good Morning Canada. The gentleman who interviewed me was full of stats, a ton of research he did. So if you guys want to check that out too, there's a lot of good information there. And that was called, I can't remember, something about a McMansion. That's what stands out. The opposite of a McMansion, but it's really cool too. So that's over on our website. You guys might find that interesting also.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll send out an email with the contact information and stuff like that for Teacup Tiny Homes. So doesn't look like there's any more questions. So I think we'll call it a night. And thanks again so much, Jennifer, for your time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.